I don't even know what beat I'm rocking to right now. I'm just
Uh-huh.
dancing.
You just moving. Yeah,
Just
we're on
moving, man.
live. I
Can
like
you
the
move like
moves.
it?
Can I move like that? Yeah, man, listen, man. I'm married with 4 kids,
That
two
don't
jobs.
that means you were doing a lot of moving.
You know what? Just start the show right there. I got nothing. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to Let's Talk with Gales and Dean. I'm your host, Gales, as usual. And to my left is.
Man, I thought you know who it
You
is.
forget who you are, man?
Hold
And
on, because what I wanted
action.
to say, I had to stop myself because it was gonna be kind of out there.
Come on,
But
man.
you
Be
know who it is. You know who
respectful.
it is,
We
man. The
gotta.
insane Mr. Dean, back with my brother, my co-host, my best friend, my guy, Mr. Gales. Glad to be back as we took off last week to recover a little bit from some Thanksgiving hangover.
Man. I have to
But we are
recover for them
back.
beans, potatoes, yams, and all. You have to
I
recover
was
from
kind of
all
on the
that.
weather too. I was kind of, as you can still hear it in my voice. Y'all got to bear with me, man. I was under the weather. You know, it wasn't a good thing. You go to Tennessee and come back home, and the climate change make me sick. But I'm back. I'm talking shit, and here we go.
Pay the man. So again, for the people who may be new to the show, we have set up a fine system for Mr. Dean because we're trying to make him a respectable journalist fella, or at least journalist adjacent. All right. I'm having a hard time here. We got the pay the man ticker. We got the fine system. He owes about $8.3 billion. Somebody out there, please help me out. Please pray for this man. Okay. So look, I you in that Florida Seminole hat, what is going on with them and why do you continue?
First of all, it ain't Florida Seminole hat. It's Florida
Florida
State
State Seminole, excuse me.
Seminoles. Second of all, that's my squad, baby. I'm gonna ride or die with us. Speaking of, third of all, it is a third of all.
Okay.
We, my friend, have not been good. The last winning season we had, I think, was 2016. We have sucked since then. Bro, we bounced back this year with a 9-3 record and going to a bowl game after being absent for 3 years. I'm going to represent. I'm going to represent. But speaking of Florida State, there's a former Florida State player that just made a big move.
Oh man, whoever could you be talking about? Let's listen to this clip and then we're gonna bring on the guests.
We're going to have one of the best coaching staffs assembled, some of the best scouts, some of the best kids that we're recruiting, and commitments already coming on the way as I speak. And now that I've gotten here and I see it, and I understand it, Rick, and I can grasp it, and I could touch it, and I could feel it, and I could taste it, I truly understand what you want. All you want is an opportunity to win, to compete, to dominate, to be amongst the elite, to be amongst the best. And darn it, I'm going to give you that.
Okay, so that's a good segue as we welcome to the show one Chris Pointer. How are you doing, my friend? Tell the people a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right into your thoughts on this coaching move.
I'm doing great. I'm blessed. Let me just first say, Gales, Dean, appreciate you guys, for allowing me to get on your podcast. I try my best to follow what you guys do, and it's very inspiring when you all can tap into a platform and do what you do. A lot of people try, they attempt, but the commitment you got to have to come up with content, every show to be committed to bring the same level of energy. You all finding a passion and a joy in what you do. I applaud you guys for that. And I appreciate you allowing me to be on the show today. So, hats off to you, first and foremost for what you do and also allowing me to be on the show. I will say this, of course, you said Chris Pointer. Born and raised Columbia, Tennessee. Blessed with an amazing, phenomenal wife, Dr. Andrea Sykes-Pointer. Have 3 amazing children, Nyla Joy, Layla Gabrielle, Christian Isaiah. So basically, they just run me. I get in line. They tell me what to do. I just kind of follow through on assignment. You know, it's what we do as husbands and providing. I am fortunate and blessed enough to be the district athletic director and supervisor of nursing at Murray County Public Schools. That's what I do. I'm able to combine 2 passions. One, truly the love of athletics. Obviously, Sydney knows that growing up on the Chapman Lane, the great Chapman Lane over in the Bel Air area. A lot of greats came through from there. And also young people, youth. So I'm able to combine it with that. And then, of course, I was at it with the supervisor of nursing, which is a role that I take very seriously. Was able to take on that role through the COVID time, and have since been able to work with a dynamic team of individuals and the nurses that we have in Murray County Public Schools. So a little bit about myself, who I am.
I'm gonna bounce back on Chris, man. Look, Chris said everything good about himself, but he left out. Chris was a hell of a baseball player, which y'all don't know, man. Chris was a hell of a baseball player, but Chapman Lane was the lane where athletes was born. I'm telling you, every day, all day. It wasn't no sitting in the house, being on the PlayStation, Sega, Nintendo. Every day, all day, we were outside. Whatever season it was, we were playing.
Yeah, we had the Segas and Nintendos, but it was just for when it was rain or it got too cold outside. But other than that, we was outside sun up to sundown. We played every sport all year. And you had to be able to play and compete, or you sat on that sidewalk. You sat, on that porch and watched everybody else have fun. So you had to learn how to compete very, very quickly. There was a whole lot of trash talking going on back in that day. So you had to learn how to play everything. You had to be good at everything if you wanted to get out there and play. So yeah, absolutely.
Now to the subject at hand. So this Deion move, in which I applauded. I'm not gonna take my applaud back. I did applaud it. I made a post about it. Chris commented, and then he called. I was looking at it from a football standpoint of a great move it was. And I said that in my post that I made. Chris called me and we had like an hour conversation. And he pointed out a lot of cons to this too that I did not really look into until after we got off the phone and I went in and did my research. I'm like, Chris got a lot of good points of what this guy promised, what he said, etc. And he didn't live up to. I'm gonna let Chris explain that to you because he broke it down, and I'm telling you, man, it's deeper than what you think. But what I'm saying is, the thing is, Deion got bashed real bad for leaving and taking the Colorado job. And what I was saying, it was amazing to me how people was getting mad and bashing this man for doing it, when in reality, he was going to leave Jackson State anyway. Bigger opportunities was coming. You went down there, you did what you had to do, you got him on track. You got him nationally recognized. Bigger jobs were going to come. We knew he was going to take it. So where I'm seeing from a football standpoint, what he's trying to do, he's trying to win a national championship and a couple with the platform and the way he want to do it. So I applaud him for that and taking the other job. People got to realize this man was never going to stay at Jackson State. So we can't bash him for leaving. That's just like you got a $20, $30, $40 paying job, and then somebody will be like, well, I'm gonna pay you $100 an hour. 9 times 10, we're gonna take it, right? We're gonna switch and go do it. That's what he did. But Chris pointed out a lot of cons to me that he in the whole ordeal that I didn't realize, and I went back and looked at him like Chris got a point. So I'm gonna let him explain that to y'all.
Well, Sydney, all I did was just catch you late in the game and knowing you was gonna miss some free throws, so that just kind of caught you slipping.
I knew you were going. I knew that free throw was coming.
There you go.
That's really all it was, man. I caught you late in the game, cramping up on my comment, man. And I knew you was gonna miss the free throws. I'm still waiting on you to call me back, by the way, because you told me, you said, "Hey, I'm eating dinner. I'm gonna call you back," and then you suckered me in and said, "I need to put you on the show." So
hey, it worked.
And it's cool, man. And listen, yeah, he suckered me in. He's like, "I'll call you back in an hour." And I'm sitting around waiting, got to do stuff. He texts me, hey, you need to get on the show, man. Just send me your contact info. Get you on the show real quick. Which is cool. Now, what I was expressing to Sydney is like I'm gonna pose a question to you two, and the question is this: if you were financially set right now, like you were financially comfortable, and you were at the place, or you could be at the place that you desire to be financially, and you had a calling, because both of you, everybody has a calling in their life that God does call them to do something.
Mm-hmm.
My question for you is, what is it that you would be doing? If financially it was not an issue, what would you be doing?
Wait, so if I came into some money, like my first moves,
No,
like,
not necessarily came into money. You were just financially set. You were set financially. You didn't have to want for anything. You didn't necessarily have to go to a job to be able to provide for your family. Financially, you were set based on whatever parameters or whatever you did to set up in your life. But you had this calling and a yearning to do something that you always wanted to do, taking money out the equation. What would you be doing?
You want to go first, Gail? You want me?
man, I would say, okay, me and Rich have another show, and we talk often about what can really help, I guess, bring, and I hate saying black people, but this is our experience, so we're coming at it from that experience. But it's really black, brown, poor, whites, anybody on that side of the spectrum. So for us, it would be straight up education, right? Land and education. So those two things would be the things that we work on, and trying to use those things to build voting blocks and legislation, because that's where the real game is, man. Like whether it's a pothole or we want to stop police brutality, it's all done in the courts. And really trying to get people how to understand that, what to do with your money, your time, your power, your economic power, right? Setting up all these different things. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. So that's what I would do first. Try to get as much land as possible to make people as comfortable as possible, having the necessities, right? We should not be in America worrying about food, water, shelter. We just shouldn't. So providing those things and then moving to that realm of healthcare and education and real voting power.
All right.
That's it.
Sydney, what about you?
Man, y'all, I mean, you've been knowing me for years, man. And a passion I have of mine, man, is coaching. But it ain't just the coaching part. It's building the relationship with the young kids. Teaching them the game the right way, but also making them work for every minute of playing time that you get, making them work for everything. What I see a lot now, and Chris, I know you probably see it too, being in the sports, what you do. A lot of kids feel entitled, like they deserve to be in a starting spot. They deserve to have a 4 or 5 star put on their name, and they don't want to put in the work to do it. Well, I would be that coach. I'm changing that, because I don't care if you're a 1 star, 5 star. You still gonna get out here and work to get to where I'm trying to get you to. But I'm not just gonna coach you and do it. I'm gonna get out there with you and do it. I'm hands on. I'm gonna get out there and show you. I'm putting my hand in the mud. We gonna fall in the mud. We gonna push the sled together. I'm gonna run the hill with you. I'm gonna keep you motivated, because when you get to the next level, Chris, you play college baseball. We all play at the next level and everything. You got to work, man. I don't care if you're a 1 star or 4 star, 5 star. Everybody good when you get to the next level. Nothing is ever going to be handed to you. But what that also is teaching you, that is in life, nothing's going to be handed to you. You got to work for everything.
And
so
see what I hear.
That's my passion. What I want to do.
And see what I hear in y'all's voices is passion, and it's something that I truly believe that you all could probably sit on a platform and talk about for hours. But if I ask you again, like, hey, what would be preventing you from doing that? It's like, man, I got to go to a 9 to 5 every day. Like, right? Like the means and the angle by which that I can approach that subject matter or do what it is that I feel like I've been called to do, I yet cannot step into that realm because I am strapped to an extent, because I got a family and I got folks that I got to provide for. So that passion has to be on the backbone. I kind of got to do it as a hobby, as a side thing. I can't make it my main thing. So the conversation in the context of Deion, let me first say this. I applaud 100% what Deion did individually. My basis has never been about Deion's move, because it's of layers to this, about what the move he made financially. So the argument of 300,000 to 5 million. Right. To me, that's in the context of somebody saying, well, if you get $15 more an hour at a job, you go up and pop up and leave and do all those things. Like, I'm not ever going to knock anybody for trying to provide more for their household. Deion's situation and the context of Deion Sanders is a little different. So if you go to the Desmond Howard interview, game day interview, Desmond Howard interviews Deion, and he says to Deion these exact words: if the phone rang before the mission is complete, so that's the key word, before the mission is complete, and the NFL and or a Power 5 school comes calling, Deion stops him. He says, I'm not going to the NFL. So then he rephrases his question and it reverts back to Power 5.
Right.
Calls, and the mission is not complete. What would you do? He says, I got to entertain it. Deion's response is, and this is what he says: being in Power 5 does not change my lifestyle. Meaning, whether I get 5 million, 20 million, whatever, I'm still going to live and operate without a fluctuation or taking a dip in who I am and the lifestyle that I live and the way that I provide for my family. He then says, however, it does change my coaches, meaning that in a Power 5 institution, I can get better coaches, and I'm in an environment where those coaches that I'm looking for, that I really want on my team, can make the money that there's desirous of having, which I could not do at Jackson State. So for me, when you take all of that out of the equation, Deion took that out of the equation for us. The conversations now are not about money. So then the conversation is then about, okay, well, what does Deion desire? Yes, Deion wants to be a head football coach. Yes, he wants to be probably a Power 5 football coach and break the glass ceiling. But we have not heard, or at least I have not heard, the conversation from Deion that I think is necessary regarding his move to Power 5. So then what is the argument then? The argument now becomes, all right, why did you go to Jackson State? Right? Deion is a showman. That's what he does. God spoke to me and he called me collect, and I had to accept the charges. You know what I'm saying? So Deion gets on the stage and preaching, and people who know in Black culture, when you get to church context and you start hitting certain key words, certain key phrases, the African American community is drawn into at a different level, and it resonates with them at a different level. So here is this man who literally stood up and did not say definitively, but we got the impression or perception that here is an individual who is now going to bring something different to the HBCU context. Now, let me preface it by saying that. Did I attend an HBCU? No. Have I been to HBCU campuses? Yes. My wife, Dr. Andrea Pointer, taught in the HBCU for several years. So my points of references always goes back to her in the context of conversation of what, why, who, when, where, and all this other stuff. So, and I need to preface to say that. But I also say this: Deion made a whole lot of promises of things that he said that he was going to do and make happen at Jackson State. Was he able to get some things changed and happen? Yes. But Deion became the sole person who could step into an institution like Jackson State and begin to create real systematic change. So it goes back to what you talked about, Gail. Also talked about what you talked about, Dean, as far as athletics in general. Systematic, true change, not fly by night, not flash in the pan, but true change, because they had to pay attention and listen to Deion. Why? Because when Deion stepped foot on Jackson State, he didn't really need anything from anybody. Because what did he tell you? My lifestyle is not going to change. So financially, you can't hinder me in what I do, because I already make enough money. I make more than you, the president, make more than you, the SWAC president. What I bring and what I am going to bring to the table is going to be far greater than anything you've ever done. So people had to be beholden to Deion to a certain extent. And with that carries a lot of weight, carries a lot of power, and carries a lot of hope for the people who thought and wanted to see true change. For example, we know that Jackson has a water crisis. Google it, look it up for yourself. If you go and read the articles, Deion was ever able to leverage a stadium prior to the fixing of the water crisis in Jackson. And if you read it, this is what they say. They say, we did this in hopes that this would entice Deion to know that we were serious and that Deion would stay. The question is now, are they going to deliver on all of that? The stuff that Deion got done for Jackson State, this is the most alarming part about it, is the things that Deion got done, he got done because it was Deion Sanders. They didn't do it because of the young people that was there on campus. They didn't do it because of the coaching staff that was there previous. This isn't the first time that Jackson State has said, hey, I need a new stadium. Hey, our playing services are crap.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, the way that we run business at the school is not the way that it needs to be run. Like Deion brought light to these things and put it on a national stage,
Right.
which made people try to run to try to fix them. But I can go on and on. But that's really my backdrop for, you know, my challenge on what I'm torn with as far as what Deion, his move to Colorado, yeah. But I applaud it. Listen, if this man wants to go to Colorado and better himself, better his family, but the arguments that are on the table, I think we have to look at it. Is Deion the best thing and the worst thing to happen to HBCU/Jackson State? And arguably, in my opinion, the more that I wrestle with it, the answer to that question is yes. He is the best and the worst thing. He leaves an ocean gap at an institution to be filled. He just went to Colorado and pulled 10 of the best players from Jackson State University, all while telling the others, talk to me before you enter the portal. I'll tell you whether or not it's worth your time entering the portal. You need to stay at Jackson State. Well, Deion, I love you, man, but you're no longer my coach. How are you going to dictate what I need to do now, here, henceforth, or whenever? And so you take the 10 best players from Jackson State, you invertedly win the SWAC conference 2 years in a row, phenomenal record, phenomenal season, and now you're about to pluck talent. Essentially, that is the exact same thing happened when schools began to integrate. There was a plucking process that took place. And Deion, listen, I respect it. I'm finna go from an FCS school to a Power 5 institution. But the things that Deion lobbied on, the things he argued about, the things that he talked about as far as leveling the playing field,
Right.
it's now very counterintuitive from the standpoint that he is now speaking from both sides of his mouth, because now he is competitively competing against that which he said he wanted to fix. Now he said, oh, I can sit up here in Colorado and I can still support and I can still do, but at the end of the day, Deion, you want to win. So you're not going to tell that Power 5 athlete who wants to experience the HBCU, you're gonna sway him from doing so. Because as you said, you want those dogs, right? Right? You're bringing your Louis bag, and everybody's put on notice. So
to piggyback off what you said, Chris. To piggyback off you said, I watched him speak to the Colorado athletes that's already there. The football team's already there. I don't agree how he came at them. He basically told, well, hell, he didn't basically. He told them players, you might as well hit the portal. I got my quarterback. He's coming. So basically, you just told the 3 or 4 or 5 quarterbacks Colorado got, y'all might well go. You're not even going to compete for a star job. Then he said, I'm bringing my 10 best players and they dog. And I've already conversated with 30 in the portal. I'm coming.
But okay.
Hold on. So what I'm saying is, okay, Colorado went 1-11. You know, in college football, you got 100-some players on the team. Not all of those guys are bad. So with his coaching, and you bring in a good coaching staff, some of those guys could contribute to that team. But you basically just told them, I don't want y'all. I want all my guys that I have. I'm basically clearing house, coaches and everything, players too, and I'm bringing in new. That might come back to bite him in his ass because you ain't going to have no depth.
Pay the man.
I'm just saying you ain't going to have no depth. You're not playing against Alcorn State, Tennessee State, and all that no more. Now you playing against some good teams, even though it's the Pac-12. We know this, the Pac-12. But USC is back. UCLA is back. Utah is good. Oregon is good. You got to compete with these teams. You're not just going to run crazy over all these teams. So by you wiping out all of the talent, what's left at Colorado, and bringing in your talent, and we know it's talent, but when them guys get tired of stuff, what depth are you going to have to fill in for that? I don't like how he did that.
Well, I mean,
I like his move. I respect Deion. I just don't like basically you told them players, man, y'all might well go on to jump ship. Y'all ass ain't playing for me.
Dean, before we move on, what else do you want Prime Time to say? Like, he has been, if he hasn't been anything, and Chris, Dean, let me know if I'm wrong on this, he has been consistent. All right. His initial promises to Jackson State were pretty straightforward, right? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put y'all on the map. Did it. We're going to win the SWAC. Did it. You got 99 dadgum NFL prospects in your entire existence. I believe I'm have the 100th. He did it, right? The stadium, all these things. I mean, his initial promises, he came through and fulfilled all of them.
So
I agree with you, but I agree with you.
But as far as all the other things you're talking about, on the football side, it's Ashley Robinson's job. That's the athletic director there at Jackson State. Bring in another big name like Prime. Make those same types of deals. What he did was he left a blueprint, and now he's got to go on his individual journey while he's trying to be as straightforward with those coaches as well as players and the city of Jackson all in one. Because let me tell you, what
Deion also told the people was, and what he's told on that interview, and he's told in multiple interviews, this is what he said. Deion said, I'm about the moment.
Right.
And see, for me, like, when you're dealing with people's lives, and I've done a ton of work in the community, like, when you get in the dirty side of that, it's not about the moment. It's about the movement. It's about the impact and change that you could have long standing. It's not a little blip on a radar. It's not a notch on the belt. Mm-hmm. It's not a resume builder. Like, you're truly trying to bring about change. And that work is gritty. And I think that the people of Jackson, and even the conversation nationally was, hey, Deion can now really truly bring about change. Do you think it's more impressive that Deion gets Colorado in the top 10? In my opinion, not impressive at all. Versus taking Jackson State and getting them competitively to compete nationally against Power Fives, which is something that he alluded to when the conversation came up about Alabama. Are you ready to play a team like Alabama? Deion's comment was, no, let us get our interior folks right first, because our skill players can't compete with anybody. It's our interior. Give me 2 or 3 years and we can compete against everybody. Right. So that when you talk about promises, people hear that and they replay it 1,000 times. All the time Deion, when he initially stepped foot on Jackson and was in these grandmamas and mamas' houses, eating food and introducing himself and bringing people into his world and making people accept that, that's a very dangerous ploy, right? That you're making. Now, obviously, it is a marketing piece. It's a marketability. And I don't knock Deion for who he is. Deion's always been Prime. Deion is the same guy that took a bucket of water and dumped it on the dude. You know what I'm saying? Because the dude challenged him. Like, Deion was the guy that got off the limo and ran the 40, got back with 100, got back in the car, dipped out. He's the dude that scored a touchdown and got a home. Like, he's that guy. But at the same time, when you're talking about people's lives, when people have essentially vested all of themselves in you and held on to everything that you said for it just to be a moment, that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of folks, because I do think Deion truly could have brought about change, especially if he was in a position that financially he was not impacted at all, and that he could truly bring about a different level of conversation to the narrative that is HBCUs, that is historically Black colleges and universities, and the things that he tried to bring to the forefront so much.
See, here's where I disagree. Or I don't even know if I disagree, like, because what you said is absolutely correct. But to what degree is he responsible for fixing the water systems in Mississippi, especially when they have a historically low voting rate amongst
He
black
got
and
a
brown
powerful
people.
voice.
No, I
Bingo.
know. I know what you're saying.
His word travels.
When
Especially
Deion-
down
when
there. They
Deion
look at him
said-
like God.
No, but
Listen,
here's what
when
I'm saying.
Deion said, come out to college game day.
Uh-huh.
I want you to come out in waves and groves to college game day in the
Right.
middle of the rain. And you got to think about black folk. In
Black folks in the
rain,
rain, right?
and go come out there and stand out there because Deion said so. That's the part that I'm trying to make. I'm not saying Deion could fix the water system, but Deion could speak to it in such a way that would allow there to be some level of change. I go back to this again. Jackson State has been asking for a stadium for umpteen amount of years. There is a water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. They chose to build a stadium before fixing the water crisis because of who Deion is and what Deion requested and what Deion said it would do for the city of Jackson. Not only that, think about this for a second. Tennessee State University, and I said this today, fired their football coach. And in firing their football coach, tried to find somebody comparable to Deion Sanders because of the movement and the wave and the perception of what Deion Sanders was bringing to the table. So much so, they went out and hired a coach who had never coached football before ever because they felt like a big name, Eddie George, would bring a different level of stature and status to Tennessee State, very similarly that Deion brought to Jackson State. And you saw moves like that across the country. Deion even said this, myself, the coach at Grambling, and Eddie George are the only individuals who could speak to the inefficiencies and the challenges that are taking place at historically black colleges and universities. Everybody else who tries to speak to that, because you know why? They're beholden to their paycheck that's going to come every week or every other week. So they can't speak too loudly because they may lose their job. Deion doesn't care about that because he's set. Eddie George doesn't care about that because he's set. Coach at Gremlin doesn't care about that because he's set. Deion was the one unique individual who could bring about a level of change in a way unlike anybody else. Because guess what? If you fire me, I'm going to go back and keep living my life like I was. My lifestyle doesn't change.
But Chris, you and I both know the sway of sports in the South versus legislation and politics in the South. I mean, you're watching a guy in Herschel Walker who lives in Texas, basically because he was so good at sports, get a runoff for the Senate. I think we really have to put this in perspective that people just simply care about sports more. Otherwise, our policemen, our firemen, our teachers will be paid millions.
And think about what you just said, though. Think about what you said. You brought Herschel Walker into the context of running for political office,
yes,
and galvanizing people for political movement to now vote on things that will impact our country. Deion essentially was that same type of voice. He just did it in a backdrop to impact young men on the football field.
Not so. Hang on real quick. There's a quote from Deion Sanders who is literally talking about, he had his whole team out there talking about the situation. And he says, Sanders says that the citizens of Mississippi's capital city and his football team have remained resilient despite the difficulties in trying to get clean water. He says, when you just sit and think about Jackson and his darn state's capital, and we're dealing with this issue, he basically said that it's a what did he call it? Oh man, losing my choo-choo of thought here. Well, he basically said it's a equal rights issue. That there's no reason that any school should have to go through this, any city should have to go through this. And people were just kind of like, well, I mean, okay. And then they moved on.
If Deion really wanted to dial that up, like he did the game day, he could have.
What could he have done differently? Like spoke more.
What do you mean? Like, no. What I'm saying is Deion galvanized the energy level and the movement to get a stadium built. He stood on a stage and a platform and told everybody to turn out for college game day. If he wanted to do that for water, he could have done that for water because of who Deion is.
He took his team to the Capitol. It's not even reported enough. I mean, it's in the papers, right?
But what I'm saying is that's what I keep going back to you to say. It's like Deion was different. he is different. And in any segment of life that we look at, any type of political change or any type of change action that takes place, it is the momentum is the spearhead of it. The tip of the spear is an individual.
But
There are
here's my
multiple
question,
individuals
Chris.
in support.
Hang on real quick. Here's my question to you.
All right, go ahead.
What did he do with game day that he didn't do with the water crisis? As I said, USA Today and all the other, AP coverages, they covered this. It was on TV, but that kind of movement didn't happen. Yes, he told him about game day, but that's basically tantamount to saying, hey, people who like football, come out and watch football. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And they were like, oh, okay. But if you go take that same sort of energy and say, hey, people who don't like to vote or get involved in politics, get out here and vote and get involved in politics so we can clean this water up. And he didn't get the same sort of response. He didn't get the same sort of coverage. Why? Because that's not what people care about.
I personally don't think he puts forth the same sort of effort and use the same platform as he
so
did.
That's what I'm asking.
Like
what did he do for game day that he didn't do?
I think it was just
TV cameras, news.
He marketed good. He brung all of Jackson out.
But I'm saying, how did he bring?
When do you think College Game Day will ever go back to Jackson State?
No. But here's what I'm saying: they got to move for people to be on TV and to support football. Like, what did he actually do to make that happen? He got on stage and made a proclamation, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else did he do besides that? I didn't see anything else besides that, besides getting on TV and saying you should be ashamed of yourselves, come support these men out here on ESPN. It's not hard to get people to come show up and be on TV and support football. It is, however, after he took that entire team to the Capitol for water, he didn't get not even a quarter of a response for that.
I think the undergarment of the galvanizing of people throughout the community. See, because if nobody shows up for College Game Day, it's a huge failure. Deion can go and show up to the Capitol and make a proclamation, but he doesn't have to have a groundswell of support to do so. He understands strategically Jackson State campus has to be packed or College Game Day fails. Like, he cannot be on national TV failing with only 3 people in the stands. But I do understand. I do get what you're saying by him going to the Capitol and pushing for that. But why didn't he bring up the water crisis on College Game Day when he had the microphone in front of him? Why didn't he get on? But why didn't he say
so much at stake? I get you.
But what I'm saying is the only person that could have done that in such a way is Deion. No one else could have done what he's done. And again, I go back to this. I'm not knocking his move to Colorado. I'm just saying, in order to change the system, that is the relevance, the issues, the challenges that HBCUs are facing, it oftentimes starts with one individual or a collective body gets together and moves in one direction. It takes a situation to say, like, we're not riding the buses, right? And we're all not riding the bus, which requires sacrifice, and everybody has to be willing to sacrifice. And the challenge in any type of community engagement situation, anything that you're trying to do requires a significant level of sacrifice. If you all decided to tap into your passions, think about what you would be giving up, what you would be sacrificing.
Man,
exactly my point. And so I go back to this. Because we are beholden to that which is our responsibility, Deion is in a position, the one thing that holds most people back, which are your resources and finances, he has that. He even said he does. So we're on, in a sense, so many people were riding that coattail to see him come up to create that level of change that he spoke so highly about. Because, Deion go talk it. He go talk it better than anybody. He go talk about his experience better than anybody from the microphone. And he go draw you into that. And it is to be applauded, and he can galvanize people for that. But I think people truly wanted to see an individual who they because this is what Deion did for HBCUs, in my humble opinion. He gave them, he made it relevant. He gave it credibility. And he had those individuals out there who may have kind of been on the fence about HBCUs, really started thinking about in their own households, that say, man, I really, really would like to consider an HBCU because of the light that he shed on it. But by him leaving, it almost as if he's saying, what I said, I tried to do, I was going to do, but I'm not sure that I'm able to do. He also made individuals out there, various individuals who came to that campus, start thinking about, how do I support at a deeper level? How do I get involved at a deeper level? And so on and so forth. So the conversation can go on and on about that. And that to me, humbly in my opinion, that's kind of where my stance is. And I can continue to go back to this. Is Deion the best and worst thing to ever happen to HBCUs? Because if they go back to winning 2 SWAC championships, to fall into the bottom of the SWAC next year, because they are unable to recruit, they're unable to find significant players. I don't think the stadium is going to be really much different, because HBCU culture and football games and a band is always a dynamic piece. But it does not help when you're losing. It does help when you're winning. People want to be about a winning culture or winning environment. So,
but again, real quick, I want to get in here with this. That's not his responsibility. That's not his responsibility.
All right. So you bring up
but hold on. Here's who that lies in. That lies with Ashley Robinson, right? The vice president and director of athletics. That lies with her. That lies with the citizens of Jackson, Mississippi. The man gave you a blueprint. One of my favorite things he did was bring in somebody who is notorious for being a gold digger and explain to these dudes exactly how models are going to target them on Instagram and other platforms. To tell them, hey, man, you can go into the portal if you want to, but I suggest that you don't. And here's why. To tell those other young men, hey, here's what's about to happen. Not do like other coaches and, oh, yeah, it's all about family, and I'm not here to, change up too much. I'm here to support the players and the coaches here, and then fire all the coaches and dump all the players in the middle of the night. He's been pretty upfront about that from day one. And what the biggest thing I am so tired of, Chris, are people like just expecting everything to go exactly how they see that it should. Like,
sure.
Come on, man. He gave you the blueprint. He gave them the blueprint.
So again, I ask you this question.
Yeah.
And this is fundamentally an organizational structure and leadership.
Right.
If they could have done it already, they would have done it already.
No, well, but they
listen. Think about this for a second.
There's no excuse anymore.
No. Think about this for a second. But think about this for a second. Think about it. If they could have done it already, they would have done it already. And what I mean by that is, are there things at play that prevented them from doing it because of the situation and the plight that they're currently in?
Yes.
Politics does play a huge, again, all right. So you now have to put a person in position who is above all of that, who can maneuver through all of that, because they have a loud enough voice and a base to bring light to that. Just not any average person can tackle the political intertwinedness, that which is what historically Black colleges and universities are going through. Like it takes a special individual to also be able to look legislators in the face and say, build me a stadium, when we've been trying to get a new one for the last 20 years. Because if they could have done it already, they would have already done it already. Yes, he gave them the blueprint, but this is the thing about blueprints and systems. They can be great all you want, but if you got the wrong people running them and trying to follow the plan, you still got a broken blueprint and a broken system. Therefore, it takes the right individuals on the right seat on the bus, headed in the right direction, at the right speed and pace, at the right time, to impact the level of change in what you're saying. Yes, I don't think it should fall on the shoulders of one individual,
right?
But think back in history on any level of movement whatsoever, there was a figurehead who was the sole individual who created the movement. And therefore, in order to create and bring about the systemic change, they had to stay within it long enough to bring about the necessary change.
And that's the biggest flaw. I talk about this with Malcolm X and with Martin Luther King. That's one of the biggest flaws that they themselves feared very much so. That the idea that it will be all about me instead of this tactic on how to get the changes that we as a group of people need. and that group was expanding rapidly from just black people to black and brown people to poor white people to workers. I mean, all these things. This man, Martin Luther King, was lamenting about how bad he felt about the civil rights movement because we took that little bit and thought we had gotten so much, when he was trying to plead with people and saying, no, this is just the beginning, because it didn't cost the country anything. It didn't cost us. There was no dollar amount to sign those bills to say, okay, I guess y'all are human now, black people. Okay, fine.
So again,
Right?
it goes back to the deeper conversation of who can create that level of change across the board. And
But that's
again,
what I'm saying. I don't think you should put it on any individuals. I think we should start.
I'm not putting it on.
I'm not putting it on
one
systems.
individual, but I'm not putting it on one individual. But you can't have a whole lot of chiefs in a room. In any organizational structure, in anything, is going to be led by an individual. So let's go back to this. You all work for companies. Y'all work for a lot of different. Do y'all have multiple CEOs at your companies?
Nope.
Exactly my point. So even in a movement, in a structure, even when you look at it organically, or you look at it corporately, there still has to be a person who is leading the charge and who is capable and able of doing that. I think it goes back to the point that Deion, in my humble opinion, was fully capable of being able to do that. Did he need help? Absolutely. He had assistant coaches to help deliver a SWAC championship. But there was no doubt in anybody's mind who was the head football coach of Jackson State. There was no doubt.
Again, you're saying you're not putting it on one individual, but you're holding Deion to task to do more, which is absolutely the right move. He should have done more.
To whom much is given, much is required, though.
But we don't know the end of this man's story because
heavy is the head that wears the crown. If you're the head football coach,
check this out. Because Dean cannot stand Uncle Steve Harvey, right? But I think one of the most interesting things he says is the best thing you can do to help poor people is to not be one of them. If he's really on his journey to become Power 5, and not even just Power 5, but top 5 Power 5, to bring like a Florida State back, right? I mean, it's shocking to me that he didn't get an SEC job, because that would have been just blown the top off of everything.
But don't you think there's a
reason? Hold on, let me stop you on that. So it was
first of all, what's up, Untamed Fitness?
What up, people? What up?
I'm gonna let you go, cousin, real quick. I'm gonna say this. He was linked to the Auburn job for a long time, but all three of y'all know Auburn is not ready for what Deion was gonna bring down.
Auburn is a horrible, horrible coaching job. I'm sorry.
It is, but just the culture of Auburn, Alabama was not ready for the flash and dash that Deion would have brought. So I don't think he was ever going to take that job, because what comes with Deion is the lights, camera, action, glamorous. He prime time. He always have been. That's what we grew up on. That's what we like about it. He was never going to take that Auburn job because the people and just the city of Auburn, they wasn't ready for nothing like that. So that SEC job was wiped out anyway, because Auburn or Alabama, they're not ready for the likes of a Deion and what he's going to bring.
Right. Charles Barkley been trying to pay coaches to go down there and coach forever.
For years.
It's just a bad situation internally. But that goes back to what I said about one Ashley Robinson, Vice President and Director of Athletics. Step up and do your dadgum job. I don't want to hear any more about, Deion left. And go get another Deion. Go get Michael Irvin. Go get a better coach. Build the system. Keep following the blueprint, because if we keep putting on individuals have their own goals. But you just put it on an individual. You just put it on him.
You just put it on the director of athletics. Again, I go back to this.
That's part of the system. I'm saying that's part of a system.
Right. So it also goes back to the president. It also goes back to everybody else, which they laid out.
It's the community. The best way you can do that is I need every big business here in Jackson, Mississippi to start giving these kids these name, image, likeness deals, for one. And then I need to set up a system to make sure that everybody who graduates from here, goes pro from here, does anything, TikTok, YouTube star from here. I need y'all to flood money back into your school, building pride. Like, there's so much that's wrong there that, like, I would have bounced too.
It's
was
not
very
about
open.
what was said, it's about who says it. So when Deion opens his mouth and says it, it's almost the gospel. Oh, Deion said build a stadium. We've been asking for it for 20 years. Oh, we need to build a stadium. Again, it's not about, if they would have done it already, they would have done it already.
He also told people to come down to the Capitol with him and his football team on national TV and support these bills that will help the water crisis. We have to also understand that people care more about football than clean water in Jackson, Mississippi. And as sad as that is, it seems to be the absolute truth. Let me get to Tame Fitness real quick. I love this, man. Chris, that Govit. I love it. Tame, what do you have to say about the situation?
So, man, about the situation, I didn't heard all the points, and I agree with everything that's being said, and things like that, but we're talking about, what Deion promised, what he didn't hold his end on and things like that. But I can really speak and ask all of y'all, what's the one thing that if you got a plan or something that can literally make you change, derail what you got going on for the better interest of them?
Whew. Dean?
I'm gonna let you and Chris answer this shit because I'm gonna come over with some crazy.
Hey, man, go ahead, Chris.
Like what? Like I guess I don't understand the question. What do you mean?
Like, so if you got, if you're sitting there and you done made promises and things of that nature, and this is what I'm gonna do, and things like that, but then your eyes open to something. Like, what is it? I won't play the guessing game. I won't make y'all do the guessing game. It's the future of your children. Shedeur ain't finna get drafted out of Jackson State. He's down there putting up video game numbers, but it ain't gonna mean nothing. So now he's looking at the future of his kids. If my kid can go and put up decent numbers in the Pac-12, he gonna get a better opportunity than he will in Jackson.
A quarterback.
Now, I'm not saying that that's right. You know what I mean? But I know everybody on these four windows up here, if it's coming to make the better for your kids in the future, like Chris, you ain't finna send your kid, you know what I mean? No offense to what I'm going to saying. You're not finna send your daughters to Zion Christian Academy to get a softball scholarship.
Now listen, like I will say that is 100% accurate, but I will say this for Deion: speak that truth. Like if that's an underline, and what you said, I had the same conversation with my dad earlier today for about an hour about the subject about his kids being on a bigger platform. But I also think there's a lot to say that his other son, who didn't accompany him to the press conference, is also torn because what Deion sold everybody. And his son, who claims to be the 6th drum major for the jukebox down at his Jackson State, because of what his father sold him on. Now, if his son's dream is to get to the NFL and he needs to make that move for him, I think that is a conversation. Now, Deion may say that ain't none of your business, which I 100% applaud that and respect that. But Deion is so vocal and so supposedly like out front in your face that I feel like that's something Deion would have said. That I need to get my son and these other kids on another stage because they're not getting it at Jackson State. Oh yeah, by the way, I argued and said that I was going to be able to do that.
But I mean, we do all understand that there's like an underlying sort of thing there, right? That the bigger and better the college, like basically the NCAA has just become probably, if I'm being honest, already has been just a farming system for the NFL. The NFL doesn't really have a minor league league. They don't have a minor league, right? You got your system set up in baseball, which is probably the best system, right? Basketball has G League, Euro League, all these different things. NFL doesn't really have that. What they do have is Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, so on and so forth, right? So isn't that just sort of an understood thing that the bigger the conference, the bigger the school, the bigger the stage, the more eyeballs are on you, right? Which is why it's so important for Sunday Night Football, even as far as MVP voting and things of that nature. I mean, do you agree with that, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I think NCAA. I think the NCAA and what they bring to the table, especially in Power 5, when we're talking about his son or his children in general, and even his daughter who plays basketball, I think that better positions them than being at an FCS school. It just does.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. I want to get to Dean real quick, but that's fair enough. What were you about to say?
I was reading.
Georgia Dolls. That
I was
got you.
I was reading a comment from somebody, and then they said he was going anyway when you got Tom Brady and other players said he's NFL ready. He wasn't NFL ready at Jackson State.
Yeah,
of course, you're gonna look NFL ready at Jackson State with the competition that you are playing against.
No, but I think.
Hold on. Like now you up here with the big dogs. Let's see you put up them numbers week in and week out with the big dogs.
But that's gonna
it's the Pac-12, bro. It's the Pac-12. We know it's the Pac-12. Not a good defense.
Hang on, Dean. Hang on. Like put this in perspective. Tom Brady and NFL scouts. Do you think they're taking it into account that he's playing against SWAC and other talent level like that? Are they looking at his actual mechanics and his actual potential and saying that he's ready? Not just the numbers that he's putting up.
Are they saying it because he Deion's son?
Possible, but there's no reason for him to
I would
go
say
out of his way to praise him.
Outside of the sport of baseball, and Tame can attest to this, outside of the sport of baseball, if you are not in a Power 5 or something near close, you got to put up ungodly numbers to really get consideration. Baseball is a neutralizing sport. So, like, doesn't matter what size you are, you can hit, you can catch and throw. Like, oftentimes they're going to find a spot for you regardless. When it comes to football and everything else, if you put up big numbers, they want you to put up the big numbers against the best talent around. 95-mile-an-hour fastball is a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. 88-mile-an-hour slider is an 88-mile-an-hour slider. But somebody who is 6'5", 320, who is coming after you, running a 4 whatever, that's problematic. And you have to be able to think and be able to make things happen. So I think there's a true distinction outside of baseball, softball, those types of sports. When you get into your other sports, the conference level, the talent level does play a part in your draft status to an extreme extent on how they grade you and how they evaluate you in totality.
Let me ask y'all this. Let me ask y'all opinion on this, and just an opinion. Is Shedeur a top 5 quarterback in the nation right now?
No.
Okay.
He's not a top 50.
You
know what I mean? Like, and it's nothing. It's no knock against him, because don't get me wrong, I'm actually rooting for the guy. You know what I mean? But when you're looking at linebackers that he's playing against that are my size, compared to in the Pac-12, kind of like Chris just got through saying, he's gonna have a DN that's 6'7", 330 running a 4.2. Like, your decision making, your awareness, your footwork, all of that stuff is gonna get put up for question. But if he shines just a little bit, if he does just a little bit of what it is that he's doing in Jackson, that's gonna give him a little bit more of a chance at the future in the NFL than at Jackson State. I mean, let's just be real. Like, if he stays at Jackson State, bro, he's not getting drafted. I don't care what Tom Brady said. Tom Brady credibility is a little shot right now. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's not just him.
If he did get drafted, it wouldn't be high.
It would be a favor.
I think he gets a shot. I think he gets a shot. I mean, respectfully, it is Deion's son. I think he gets a shot. I even think he makes a practice squad at a minimum, especially if he stays healthy. Now, obviously, he would have to prove himself. Now, I think in the Pac-12 in Colorado, he will have to see it through with his son graduating now. But I think if he puts up solid numbers, it does improve his status of being able to be drafted. And again, to Tame's point, if that is the underlying reason why he decided to go to a Power 5 school, leaving this is kind of crazy to think about it. He goes and leaves probably the best FCS situation, period, in the country, arguably, to the worst Power 5 situation, arguably, in the country. He's better than Baker Mayfield.
Y'all leave him alone. He just got waived. Come on.
That's funny, man.
Come on now. Right.
But yeah, I mean, I just, I just say, looking at everything that was said, knowing Deion, know
Good
how
point,
much pride he
Tremaine.
has, know how much, he tried to be a man of his word and things like that. Logically, in my mind, that's really the only thing that I can kind of see him, the reason for him leaving, what the underlying factor would have to be, like his kids. But Deion being Deion, I don't think that he really would come out and say it because of who he is.
Yo,
I mean, it's
do
prime time.
And
Is
you
it
have
fair?
to, you really have to respect it.
Yeah.
If he don't say it, I mean, you got to respect it. That's
right.
That's underlying reason and great.
But
One
here's the
thing before we
You've been quiet all
almost wrap
day
it up
today,
here.
Dean. You've been quiet, man.
We ain't used to this, Chris.
I'm quiet because you and Gail's making. I'm listening. I'm learning, bro.
Man,
Like,
I need more time, Chris. I need more time,
bro. Look, sometimes when you bring a guest on, sometimes you have to sit back, take a back seat, and listen. And that's what I did. Like that's why I tell people, me and Gail's got a platform that people we know we want to bring y'all on. You got an opinion or anything? Come on here and let that shit off, and we're gonna let you have that floor to do that. That's what I was doing today, but. Before we get our wrap things up, Chris also hit me with something else. Colorado has money. Colorado has a top 10 in facilities. Colorado has 5 billionaires that got degrees from there. Deion got resources like a mother right now.
But listen to what you're like.
What I want to say, I can't say because they might bet us up. But
hold on, Dean.
He got it.
Hang on. Listen to that list that you just laid out. There's no reason that HBCUs can't have that same sort of thing. Why do our talent? I know I see you looking at me crazy, but I'm saying, why is it that we're allowing our talent to get plucked out of these places, right? Because a lot of those, a lot of HBCUs for Black people in the top, I guess 5% or whatever, they kind of use that as a stopping point on the way to a Harvard or somewhere else, right?
But
there's nothing stopping us from really building that besides ourselves and our own supporting that mythos.
Right. We've had some big time people come out of HBCU, like Chris said. Me and him talk. You got Oprah. She went to Tennessee State. We know Diddy and what's the old girl name that play in all the movies?
Taraji P.
They went to Howard. I mean, the list, just some I'm naming. The list, Michael Strahan, Texas State. The list go on and on and on. So you can go to HBCU and become something. But these athletes are going to look at the big name schools. You're going to look at the Georgia, the Alabama, the Tennessee, on, and the TV time, and that's what they just gravitate to. Bro, look at us when we played. That you didn't hear, even though we got recruited, and our Tame and Chris, even though we got recruited by Tennessee State, that wasn't our first choice that we wanted to go to. Think about it.
That's just because of the stories that were built up. I mean, think about this. Dean, why are you even a Florida State fan?
The reason why I'm a Florida State fan, when I was 6 years old, that was the first college football game I watched on TV. And I took a liking to.
But I mean, think about that.
And Ron Simmons was my favorite wrestler a long time ago, and he played football for Florida State.
But think about this. You saw that game, and what did you see? You saw big production, right? You saw a storied school that has a lot of history wrapped up in it, right? You saw them be successful. I mean, all those things. Like I was coming up as a Cowboys fan when we were going to Super Bowl. Seemed like every year.
But Gail, I go back to our original comments and statement. When you say we can't put it on one man's shoulders, how many times have we brought the conversation up just in the last hour and 3 minutes and 38 seconds, simply because one sole individual in the name of Deion Sanders? We ain't talking about Eddie George. We ain't talking about nobody else. We talking about Deion Sanders. We're not talking about Shannon Sharp. Right. We're not talking about his brother. We ain't talking about none of these dudes. We are having this conversation about that simply because of who Deion was, the level of impact that he had. And again, that carries a lot of weight. You know what I mean? Like, that carries a lot of weight. And Jeremy keeps bringing up this whole thing about money. Go back and look at the video that we talked about earlier. Deion said these exact words: "My lifestyle will not change going to a Power 5. So one sole individual, no matter how much money that they offer, what they're giving him, is irrelevant. Like, if you go back and look at that, the College Game Day YouTube video, I'll send it to you after the cut, Jeremy. It has nothing to do with money, because he just said my lifestyle will not change.
No. His money, his lifestyle won't change.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying.
Understand what he was trying to say as he's trying to get people to donate back to their university. but these people can't even get jobs to be able to afford to donate back to their university. A lot of the times, my sister went to shout out to Alabama A&M, and a couple of them graduated and found out later as they were going to get jobs that some of their classes were not accredited. The living conditions, like there's a lot of work that can be done. And I'm sure Deion looked around and was like, hey, we need to do this. And they were like, well, yeah, we can build a stadium. We can do this. But the systemic things that need to change in this country, not only at Jackson State or even the city of Jackson, but all over the country and even the world.
Again,
people are just have decided we're not going to do that. But we'll give you a stadium, Deion. Hey,
but I think
I know you're on the Capitol, but yeah.
But I honestly think it's bigger than that, though. I think if Deion stays, and this is my humble opinion, like it's my humble opinion, Deion stays, he could have changed all of that. Because the threat of Deion doing something like bringing more attention to it, or even leaving for that matter, would have forced them into change. He could have used that power and that platform. And
but
again,
do you think Deion could have did it by himself, or was he going to have help?
No, I don't think Deion would have done anything by himself. Like, he doesn't do anything by himself now. He's just the mouthpiece and the voice. I think Deion is smart enough to have a support structure under him. Like, all the social media, the PR stuff that we see kind of on Instagram, Facebook, that's done by his son. That's done by Junior. But that's all very strategic and very intentional on when it's applied. And now he's about to go to a department in Colorado that's about 10 times the size of what Jackson State has, and he's going to leverage that to have an even bigger voice.
Chris, let me ask you this real quick, and I'm sorry. Look, sorry for cutting you off.
No, you good, man. That's part of the dialogue.
I want to really get to this. Are you going to afford Deion that same level of I don't know,
grace
as far as when he first talked about coaching, he said, I want to coach NFL, and if not there, Florida State. They would not let him do either. So he got in where he could, and he said, here are the things that I'm going to plan to do here. But if his overall goal from the beginning has been Florida State and beyond, I think you have to take that into consideration. And how much more can he do at a Florida State that he could not do at a Jackson, especially when the people of Jackson wouldn't allow him to do it.
You say Florida State. I talked to Tame earlier about this. 4 years from now, do not be surprised watching Deion on the sideline of Florida State. It's bigger. The man got he got a big plan of what he's doing. And to get to one of the elite schools, he did what he had to do. He in Colorado now.
Listen, he got a chip on his shoulder about Florida State. He got a chip on his shoulder about Florida State.
But
you go to Colorado, you win 2 or 3 years. Your name becomes hot. Norvell keep us winning. Other schools don't want him. Norvell leaves and take another job. Who else we gonna hire to come to Florida State? What is the right hire? It'll be Deion. I think ultimately he got a bigger plan for what he did. It's how he did it that's pissing people off. Ultimately, I think he want to wind up on the sidelines of Florida State where he played ball at. That's what I think.
I don't want people to lose track.
That's just.
But time will tell, and time is going to work all that stuff out. I don't want people losing track of what Chris is saying. That Deion, if he stayed, could have done so much more. But Chris, what I'm saying is, I believe that you're absolutely right, and it would not have been enough. Those funds in those facilities that you're talking about that he gets at this new school, there's even more out there. I mean, he's not even getting to the Texas schools of like all that oil money out there, man. Like they said, billionaires, that's a different type of money.
And listen, I 100% don't disagree with. I'm just telling you my stance on when you start thinking about just in general conversation, when you say, is he the best and worst thing to happen to HBCUs?
Right.
And you got to ponder the thought, Deion's coming to an HBCU and just really in a tornado-like sense and just hitting this, this whirlwind of an environment and then coming back to the context of, man, I got to go. I'm hitting it. I'm going to Colorado. I'm out. When the entire city of Jackson, that school was like at his, like, I won't say beck and call, but willing to do whatever they needed to do because of who he was as Deion Sanders.
But I
And
mean,
I think that carries a lot of power and weight.
But do you think? I mean, because I think the fact of when certain coaches leave, certain jobs and things like that, and they go to something new, I feel like this one is being more magnified than other ones based off the black culture.
I would
Because
say,
we
I would
feel
say
like
yes.
he
Go
was.
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
Because I mean, because some of these comments that I'm reading, I mean, from local jokers and even some with some pretty big platforms are almost making it like once he took that job, it was an obligation for him to fix the problems that are in the HBCUs, for him to bring it up. But I guess my big thing is that like now, like it's, well, who steps up next? Like he gave a blueprint, so do the athletic directors, do the presidents, like do y'all step up and I mean, like you said earlier, Michael Irvin, he loud spoken. He's a Deion. Do they start going to grab these people? Eddie George, I thought was the absolute. I would have signed Cortland Finnegan before I got Eddie George, just based off of personality, and things like that. We knew that was going to be a flop. They lost to the Nailers.
But I think the challenge with Deion is the platform in which he sold everybody on. Deion is masterful in what he does and how he says it. Deion never kept it truly about football. If you go down to Alabama, Nick Saban keeps it 100 about football until his players wanted to march and he had to come up with a conscious decision that he was going to lead the pack with them. The same with other football coaches across the country. Deion made it bigger than football and different than football when he went to Jackson State. The conversation was far beyond that. And he decided to challenge the establishment. And when you do that, when you start challenging it like that publicly on a stage and a platform, you now become beholden to fix it. You can't sit up and complain about something that you're not going to do anything about. We can't sit up here, and me and Tane were sitting up here talking about, and I remember the conversations me and your pops used to have and other people, and you've been a part of these conversations too. Like, man, we got to do something about having more minorities playing baseball, right? We got to do this. We got to do this, and this. Why aren't we seeing this happen? What happened to him? And you know what happened? That gummit, we went to work and we built 2 baseball fields out at Fairview Park that was shut down for 28 years. So we can't sit and complain about something if we're not going to put forth the effort and the energy to be able to change those environments.
Now, Chris, right? Because it's a
no, absolutely 100%.
But here's what I'm saying.
But what did Kobe say? Kobe said this: you don't stop in the middle, you finish when the job is done. Why aren't you excited, Kobe, that you up 2-0? Because the job's not finished.
Okay.
And all I'm saying is, in Deion's move, I don't believe that the job was finished. And that's just my personal opinion. Deion has every right to go to Colorado, and I applaud it to the fullest. I celebrate it. I want him to be successful. I want him to break the glass ceiling. I want him to stand amongst the greats. I'm just saying, what he sold folks on, what he got up there and preached about and said that he had to take a collect call on, I just don't truly believe that the job was finished. Because how do you think he got the #1 player in the country to come to Jackson State? It was bigger than football what he sold him on. When folks entered the transfer portal and came to Jackson State, it was bigger than football is what they sold him on. It was that experience is what he sold them on. And when he got them there, and then in turn to leave that experience in which he said he was creating, to me is a little bit conflicting. I get it, I understand it, but just to me personally, it's conflicting. I don't knock it. Let the man go do what he does and give kids opportunities in Power 5 and hopefully get to the NFL. I'm high-fiving it. I'm loving it all day. I'm watching it on TV. I'm just saying, you can't get on a platform and stage and do a lot of the things that he did and not see the job through, in my opinion.
Here's what I want. I'm going to tell you what I want, dadgummit. I want you back on next week because we got to continue this, and Dean about to lay a dadgum egg because both of us got to get up early in the morning. you know, Untamed Fitness is always clocking in somewhere. So
Oh hell, shit! I was
Tame
enjoying
already. Tame already at work, so he ain't gonna be late. He already.
look, that's what he look like in that shirt. That gum, look like you over there.
Hard.
Doing some
Man, I had to
bicep
coach
curls on the
tonight, man.
side.
I had to zoom home to try to give me about 15 minutes on the cast.
Yeah.
Man, look, no, for real, though, Chris, like Gail said, and Tame, man. No, next week we got to do part 2 of this. This could really be a 3 or 4 part thing because it's so much, and Jerry Jones ties into this. And
No, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, we gonna do a part 2 because Dion gonna do something this week. You know what I mean? He gonna do something this week for us to talk about.
Okay,
but yeah, no, for real. Next week,
next week,
we'll want both of y'all back.
Real quick, hang on, Dean. Untamed, talk to us a little bit about Untamed Fitness and what you got going on before you get out of here.
Y'all know, man, same old. You know, I'm actually, and I mean, I guess I can go ahead and make it official. I'm going to say it right now. I'm getting ready to start my prep, man. Next year, I'm pretty much have come to the conclusion that it's going to be my last year doing competitions. You know, so I'm going to start my prep up, you know, for that. You know, I just got different things that I want to, you know, dip and dab in, you know, with my brand, you know, just getting married and things like that, you know. So this coming up year is probably be my last year competing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just let you know, man. If you see me, man, I'm a walking zombie. That means I'm deep in the prep. It ain't no hard feelings, man. You know, I just got my head down. But I do got some things that's gonna be popping up in 2023. You know, different workshops, different boot camps, and things like that. You know, Kristen been a part of a couple of the boot camps that he can vouch for them. I still got a video that hadn't been released that I need to go ahead and drop on the people.
I mean, keep that to yourself, brother. Keep that to yourself.
Hey, appreciate you coming on the show. Don't go anywhere, Tame. Stay in that back studio. I know, look, 10 minutes tops. Chris, Mr. Pointer, thank you so much for coming on. Talk to us a little bit about what you got going on.
Man, we got a ton of stuff happening in Maury County Public Schools. I think everybody would be proud of where we're heading in our athletics realm. We got great coaches across the district. We are improving athletic facilities unlike we've ever been able to improve them before. Our school board members and our leadership at the district has been phenomenal in that support and that effort to say that we are going to move in a different trajectory than we've ever been in before. We're paying coaches better than we paid them. We've added additional support with our assistant coaches. And I think you will be able to see a more competitive product in our student athletes, not just on the fields, but in the classroom, and setting these young people up for success. I'm excited to see what's the possibilities and the things that are happening. We're far from done. We have a ton of work left to do. And I look forward to people experiencing these improvements that are going to be taking place all across Maury County Public Schools. I'm excited about that. I'm fortunate about that. I'm blessed to just be on the forefront of being able to witness and see that happen. Hey, Rainbow Circle, baby. Part of Bel Air all day.
Tell it, man.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on. Do not log off, Tame, Chris. We have got to sort this out. Dean, of course, you're going to get the last word, but real quick. The biggest thing that came up out of there, no, Deacon Dean, don't try to wave it off now. The biggest thing, the biggest question that came out of there is, for me at least, is because Deion Sanders is a black man, successful black man, who came like Santa Claus to a not successful city, let alone a football, a university, let alone a team, came to a city that was struggling, gave them a lot, kind of gave them some hope, and oh man, hey, daddy's here, right? Stepdaddy is putting on. He's rich, he's famous, he's helping us, and then he bounces to move out west. Right. Do you think that's why it seems to be more at stake? That's what we're going to cover next week. But real quick, Dean, I mean, you know, we got a lot going on with this Will Smith movie. He's making his like comeback tour, or whatever you want to call it. But look, how do you follow Will Smith in the mud?
Your backstroke.
You follow the Fresh Prince.
Well, you hell, boy. That's something good hell. That was good, man. But look here. Appreciate everybody who that was actually pretty good because I didn't think about that. But man, look, I appreciate Chris, appreciate Tane for joining the show. Always my guy, my co-host, Mr. Gales, my brother. You know, we come up with this every Monday night, man. and we do our thing. And like I was telling Chris on the when we was on the show, they were like, "You a little quiet tonight," but that's what I do. When I bring guests on the show, it's your time, it's your platform to speak whatever you feel. And anybody is welcome to come to the show and talk about anything you want to talk about on the show. Or if you want to get on here and debate with me, because half the shit I say is off the wall most times, you can do that too. That's what it's here for. We welcome everybody to the show. Appreciate everybody who got in the chats. Appreciate everybody who watched tonight. Come back next week is part 2 with Tame and Chris. Going to be even better. If you want to join the show, you know how to click the link and come on. Peace and love. We'll see y'all next week. We out.